Hi, this is Kevin Fitzpatrick from the Cnesta Group, and thank you for joining me. I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for some time. As a retained search firm, we have a coaching model, and we've been spending a fair amount of time in the last 6 months working at the C-suite level, predominantly with placements in HR, finance, sales, and marketing. And one thing that continues to reverberate and come back to me, and that is with all of the changes that are coming down in our country. And it's Friday, so I haven't checked today, but there might be another change today. And who knows, it could be another one tomorrow on Saturday. One of the things I've noticed in dealing with some companies and also with some candidates is a little bit of reticence or hesitation or questioning, what is leadership? What does it look like in these changing times? And what is it that we really require to make the right choice, either as a company hiring somebody or as a candidate considering potentially making a move? But also, one step further than that, if we think about leadership, leadership begins at the lowest level in an organization, and it carries forward as people continue to grow and they continue to evolve and they continue to change, or perhaps that great next opportunity falls in their lap. However, people seem to think that the requirements of that change. Well, I'm here to tell you I don't agree with that. I think there's a set of requirements that you need to focus on to become that great leader, beginning at that early stage in your career all the way up to the C-suite level. Obviously, they're at different levels of intensity. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at a job change, you're looking at a career, or you're looking at hiring that next best leader, I think these are some of the things you need to look at. And I wrote these down, so I don't typically look at notes when I do a podcast, but I'm going to because I want to make sure I really get the thoughts out to you. And I'm going to present them to you right now from the C-suite level. But I'm going to ask you to really think about, if you agree with what I'm telling you, how you can apply this to every level of leadership within your organization, or quite frankly, within your own career as you move up through the leadership ranks, assuming that's what you want to do, even transitioning from a private or public corporate role into that of an entrepreneur. And I've been forced to go back and look at my own leadership and how I do things as I've begun to really think and articulate what I could and should do better in my own world as an entrepreneur. So let me start out with, we'll say, a CEO. I want to focus on, we'll say C-suite, how I want to address each of these characteristics that can be identified as to what you will and will not do from your cognitive mind, but also from your key behavior, which comes out of your affective mind. And the first of that is, what is your long-term vision and mission? Is that going to lay out a roadmap for you in your career or in your company? And strategy comes into play there. It's not just going through the motions of a vision or a mission. What good are they if you don't have a strategy to do something with them? And that means a great leader needs to have the ability to think strategically and optimize all top level concerns on their mind, not top level from an organizational perspective, to top level specific to where they are in their career. It's see the big picture, not just what's right in front of you. Right now, it's not just the issue or the challenge or the change that's coming down that may be affecting the business today that's sitting right in front of us, but it's about understanding that, playing chess a little bit, and identifying or developing actionable interventions that you can coordinate across the organization, not just specific to your level, not just specific to a job you may be recruiting to fill, but what is the impact of tying that job strategically across all functions in your organization? Number one. The second is business and financial acumen. If you want to grow in a leadership role, if you want to grow into a C-suite level role, or if you are a company and you're recruiting someone into a key leadership opportunity, business and financial acumen is critical. We'll talk about HR. I'm a recovering HR leader. All too often, there's three kinds of HR people, and I'm going to say I believe there are three kinds of executives. You have strategic, you have operational, and those still trying to figure it out. Some of them think they have, and they haven't, and some of them may figure it out, and some of them actually never will. So the business and financial acumen is critical because whether you're in marketing, whether you're in sales, whether you're in operations, whether you're in finance, whether you're in human resources, or in general management, the greatest asset, the greatest expense, and often the greatest potential liability within an organization is people. Yes, human resources is the facilitator of all HR programs specific to people in an organization. But a leader in any given function must be aware of that. And how do you marry that and mesh that with your company goals? That's what's critical. You need to tie back your people goals, your talent goals, your development goals to the business across the function. Use your human resource partner at the C-suite level or any level in the organization to help you facilitate that effectively. Next is active, balanced leadership. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Learn to leverage the differences among all of us. And I'm not responding to all of the negative turns with regard to DE&I, which I'm not ashamed to say I don't agree with all those negative turns. But I want to say that taking that aside, all of us are different. It doesn't matter who we are, where we came from, what our education is. We all have differences. Differences are not weaknesses. Differences are strengths. And learning to leverage those strengths and allowing them to contribute to your developing yourself as a balanced leader can have phenomenal sustained benefit, not only for the organization, but for your team and for you as you grow into that strategic leader who gets it and can drive a business going forward or drive a key function within a business going forward. So looking at someone who's different, stop saying, okay, we've never done it that way. That's not going to work. Our culture doesn't do that. That's not acceptable. What is acceptable is change is happening. We all have differences. Look at those differences not as a threat, not as a negative, but as a potential strength for the organization. Quite honestly, it's those differences that made this country great to begin with. So why not carry that forward in everything we do as a leader in an organization, or as a company as we're trying to build the best culture? You don't want that culture to be benign or singular focused. We want to leverage those differences and celebrate the benefit in working together and bringing that together. That's going to make the company great moving forward. The next is data. Learn the data. I'm typically a ready, fire, aim guy, just how I'm hardwired. As a former comp guy, that's kind of a little different, but that's a whole other story. But it's especially now with everything changing daily. Get the data, look at the data, digest that data, and formulate a plan that makes sense, not necessarily in a reactive basis, but look at the data and step back and try and look at it again, and then again in an iterative fashion, and say, what am I missing? What is this data telling me? This data is telling me how I got here. Data often tells me what the past is or what's going on at this one particular moment. But how can I use that data to identify the level of talent I want going forward? How can I use that data to help me focus on what I need to do for my organization to make a difference tomorrow? Understanding that data is going to change every day because things are changing in our world every day now. And what I'm concerned about is we're getting reactive. Okay, I got this piece of data, and that piece of data may not be valid tomorrow because we may have set down a different direction. And that leads me to the next skill that I think needs to be focused on, that quite frankly, has lost some traction. And that is the desire to see change in how we do things. Change is necessary to grow. Change is necessary for us to flourish. And change is necessary for us to be prepared for change, play on words, that we didn't see coming. And how do we do that? And that is we always continue to focus on how to do things better. We focus on communication. We focus on active listening. And we focus on ownership. And that means a sense of community. I had a mentor early in my career, Joe. He was a CHRO. And one of the things he said to me is always remember community. What that means as a leader is that when something goes wrong in your organization or someone makes a mistake, you don't point fingers. You don't necessarily come down on someone. Everyone makes mistakes. Heck, I probably made more than I can count today alone. However, the sense of community is you take the good with the bad. You learn from it. You prepare for change. You manage change that you've planned. You've managed change that is unforeseen by having that sense of community with the organization, which, by the way, helps people to seek to understand what's coming and will open the door. And as a leader, if you communicate it effectively, I firmly believe that that is going to drive engagement. And when you drive engagement and excitement within the organization, you're going to have better employee focus in the organization. You're going to have stronger morale. You're going to be able to leverage those differences. You're going to be able to have a better shot at meeting the profit and loss expectations of the company if you just pull together and do that. The leader must be the bridge between the needs of the organization and the values that you and your team bring to that organization. So if you're a leader, and I'm going to read something I wrote down because I want to make sure I get it right. If you're a leader, you want to choose to grow and then work with the organization and do what it takes while retaining your commitment to your personal values, your integrity, and your courage of conviction. If you don't think you can do that in your role or within a given organization, it's probably time for you to make a change. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to being true to who you are, identifying your skills, whether you are a first or second level supervisor within an organization, or you're at the C-suite. These various things that I've talked about on this little podcast are critical at every level and at relative values within the organization. But if you don't feel you can do it, if you don't feel you can deliver what the expectations are, and again, be true to your values, true to your integrity, and your own courage of conviction, it's time to make a change. Thank you.